What's happening, fandoms? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here,
we react to music videos and shows.
Today we're going back to the Pixelists series of Easter egg breakdowns of the Legends of Vox Machina Season 2, Episode 2. All the details, all the Easter eggs, all the things in the background that you can't see unless you have eagle eyes like Will.
Yeah.
Our buddy from the Pixelists. So we're excited to dive into this and check it all out with you guys.
Good day, everybody, and welcome back to the Pixelists. I'm
Good
Will,
day.
and today we're talking the Legend of Vox
day.
Machina Season 2, Episode 2. If you didn't see my Episode 1 breakdown, be sure to check that out. Before we dive in, let me give a quick spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the campaign this show is based
Spoilers.
on, aspects of this breakdown are going to spoil parts of the season. That being said, I will still try to keep a lid on it, but if there are any threat level midnight type spoilers I'm going to get into, I'll give an additional warning in the video. Alrighty, so the episode starts with Vox Machina pouring out of this tree, which, you know, is a risk you take when you're transporting via plants and aren't familiar with the plant. A moment like this happened in the campaign, and I think this scene is inspired by that moment. But it didn't happen exactly this way, so there's not too much to dissect here or, you know, directly compare. I think it's just a fun scene, and of course we get Keylith showcasing her wild shape, and Scanlan gets really creative with Bigby's hand, or Scanlan's hand in this case, I suppose. But yeah, I don't think this is an actually one-to-one spell here, you know, and like I mentioned in the first episode, we're not having to be bound by the rules of D&D for this show. So I think this was just a fun moment. All right, next up, we get our first glimpse at Vax'ildan. And if you'll allow me to nerd out here for a second, this was just so cool to see. When this show was first announced, of course, I was most excited to see the narrative and characters I had grown to love come to life. But in addition to that, I was just so excited to see Exandria come to life. And at the very top of that list was Vax'ildan. This is the cradle of civilization for this world, and it's just gorgeous. They knocked it out of the park. The first thing that actually came to my mind was Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, me too.
Mainly just because of the tree and, you know, the epic architecture in general. But, you know, hopefully you guys will allow it.
Yeah.
I'll allow it.
Yeah.
That, you know, I have to admit, I did zoom enhance CSI style on this long list of people, you know, waiting to get in, hoping I would find some sort of hidden Easter egg.
Make look bigger.
So
Yeah.
touche, titmouse. But I did notice some cool iconography on the gates of Vax'ildan. Additionally, the same iconography shows up in Osisa's lair at the end of the
Oh, that's
episode.
right.
I don't have anything specific to draw to this iconography, but it's clearly ancient. You know, I don't know. I feel like just circles, especially linked circles in general, is always kind of a like, you know, the founding of the times type imagery. It brings to mind the conjunction of the spears from The Witcher specifically. But yeah, not much more to say about it, but did want to point it out. Next up, we've got a few things. First of all, we've got the Matt NPC of episode 2.
Yep.
He is
The
clearly
gate.
the guard.
Rob.
At the gate, and he says "G'day," which Grog, you know, misinterprets as "Bidet." And this has a long storied history in Critical Role at this point. Bidet is the common critter greeting. If you log on to any of the Critical Role Twitch streams, the chat will be absolutely flooded with bidets for about the first 15 minutes. This actually happened in the campaign as well. It didn't happen here, though. It happened actually in Singorn, I believe. But this is the type of moment where it doesn't really matter. They could have slotted it in anywhere.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm glad they chose to include it.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, it's part of the lifeblood of the community at this point.
Tricky kind of
Wait.
licks her fingers.
Good day. Good day. Good day. Good day. They respond better if you say good day and if you have your head.
If we say bidet?
Good day.
Bidet.
So very close. The two guards closest to you within their helmets, their eyes narrow and they look at each other and shake their heads.
Oh, bidet.
Your accent is perfect. Don't change the thing.
Other than that, really quick, let me share some of my personal headcanon. We get this shot of these girls reading a book in the line, and of course the guy face palming right behind them. For my money, I'm just going to assume that's Tusklove, and that's why he's embarrassed. So, two more quick things in this scene before we move on.
All right, Will, we
First
see
has to
you.
do with what is over the Matt NPC's left shoulder. I had to do a triple take when I first saw that. This pole with the cloth on top bears a striking resemblance to Molly's coat from the Campaign 2 intro. Now, clearly it's not that, obviously not literally. In fact, there are several of these pole fabric things in Vasselheim. So it's clearly just, the cultural design here. But I gotta wonder if the illusion was intentional. Y'all have to let me know what you think. And finally, we have Trinket being left out in the cold once again. They paid homage to this in season 1 as well, because a big bear can't go everywhere. He's a big bear. And the reason I bring it up here is because this season we're going to be getting our solution to this. So I kind of feel like it's a nice little tease towards that. All right, as the crew is walking into Vasselheim, we got a few things to cover here. First, really quick, Vex puts her arm around Percy, and she's also the one later in the episode to check on him at Victor's. And I'm just mentioning these really quick because they're just more seeds being planted at the development of this relationship, which is nice to see.
The Persalia.
This wide shot of Vasselheim, and there are a lot of NPCs in this shot.
And all these fabrics.
Quick, some of these NPC models are going to be reused all over the city, and that's completely fine. That's normal for animation studios. I just bring it up because there is an NPC that looks like Yasha that shows up in front of the Stormlord's temple here. And I've seen some people saying that this is her. I don't think it is because that NPC also shows up here, and I think other places as well. And if it was supposed to be, like a kind of hidden Easter egg of Yasha, I don't think they would use it so frequently. And a lot of these NPCs in this initial first wide shot, you can find other places in the city. Unlike that, though, we do get this shot of what appears to be Caduceus clay. Now, this model doesn't show up anywhere else, so I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be a Caduceus Easter egg. Now, does that mean this is literally Caduceus in the canon? I don't think so.
No.
Similarly to how there was a bow skull and a Ford bust in season 1, but those weren't literally those characters. I think the same thing's happening here. All right, so there's one more NPC to talk about in this section, and that is this one-eyed cat. Now, if you'll recall, this cat showed up in season 1 as well, and I think this is a recurring NPC because it is modeled after one of the Titmouse employees' real-life pets. Now, I think it's even modeled after Sung Jinan's pet. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, because in his Titmouse employee photo, he is holding a cat, and it looks remarkably close to this one. So pretty confident here, but not 1,000,000%. Alrighty, so we've got Vox Machina making their way to the Lawbear's Temple in order to speak with the Dawn Wardens to hopefully...
There are cat people in the world.
Dragons.
They're called tabaxis.
The interesting point of order is that in the campaign, the Lawbear's Temple and the Platinum Sanctuary were two separate entities. In this show, they are one and the same. The interesting point of order here is that Lady Kima in the campaign was part of the Platinum Sanctuary, but in this show, I'm not sure. The reason I'm not sure is because on her belt, she has a different symbol than the symbol of the Lawbear. Now, there's a million reasons why that could be the case.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting nonetheless.
Copyright reasons,
we
most
have
likely.
walking in, and they speak to Highbearer Vord, played by Sumali Montano, friend of the show and actual guest character in the second campaign of Critical Role. A quick fun bit that happens
answered
in this
my question.
conversation is, Grog says, you're saying bidet wrong. And that's lifted straight from the campaign, so I thought I'd share it here.
I lean over to Scanlan and I say, did you notice that their dad was saying bidet wrong?
I did.
I thought he was like a highfalutin type.
You should just say it even louder to make sure people know the correct pronunciation.
I know. We could be a force for good in and outside of the city. Bidet!
Bidet!
The guards that are waiting for you outside of the house just sigh very loudly.
One quick note is that during this conversation, Percy uses the word diplomacy. And I bring that up because he's actually been using that word a lot in the first couple of episodes. And it makes me wonder if it's an intentional nod to the fact that he invents a glove and calls that glove diplomacy. We haven't seen it yet, but maybe we will. Other than that, Vox Machina leaves empty-handed, but not before they are stopped by one of the members of the council. And you already know what time it is. We're back to Larkin Watch, baby. This character has green eyes just like the little girl. And
Yes.
I think it could be Raishan. I'm not as confident in this one. The little girl, 100%. This one, I'm going to say like 75. The eyes are green, obviously, but there's more to it than that. This character is trying to help Vox Machina. This is the one that points them in the direction to the Slayer's take, after all. Now, if this was Raishan, you might be asking, why would she help Vox Machina? Well, spoilers. later in the campaign, Vox Machina and Raishan actually team up. So this could be Raishan nudging them in the right direction to see if this group of heroes could maybe be of use to her, and this is the first domino in that plan. So I think it does make sense that if this was Raishan, she would still help them in this way. But yeah, just the green eyes are suspicious, and the fact that the character is like, you never saw me, this never happened. So let me know what you guys think. Alrighty, we got one more detail before heading on over to the Slayer's Take, and I'm going to call this a threat level midnight type spoiler. We're about to talk about Vax and the Raven Queen, and so she's going to be on the screen soon. If you don't want to know, mute the video until she leaves the screen, and then you'll be safe.
Do you want to know?
Yes.
Okay.
Alrighty. So
I want to know
Vax
her.
is seeing the Matron of Ravens for the second time. I spoke about this in the first episode. You know, it serves as some.
You didn't answer my
foreshadowing for what we
question
know
on
to
this
occur.
part.
But beyond that, I like this a lot because we know Vax to be fate touched. And we know that even beyond his deal with the Matron of Ravens, that his life was important and she would have had her eyes on him. So I just think it's cool that they're including this. And I especially like that the frequency, seemingly, with which he is seeing her is increasing with the closer he gets to making this deal with her, you know, after what happens to Vax happens. So interested to see how this relationship plays out throughout the whole season and the rest of this show in its entirety.
All right, Will, good job of navigating that without giving away too much.
I was going to say, I'm like, I
You
need
still
more
don't
info.
really know.
No, I don't.
But yeah, that was well navigated. It gave a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah, that's all I got. That's not enough info for me.
Very well done.
Okay, so moving on to the Slayer's Take. And this was one thing I was really interested to see coming into this season. And quick plug, I made a video breaking down exactly what I thought we were going to see this season based on the episode titles that had been revealed on IMDb. So if you're interested in seeing my guesses and how accurate or miserably wrong I end up being, definitely check that video out, but know that there's spoilers for those of you that have not seen the original campaign. Anyways, I bring it up because in that video, I speculate on how they're going to handle the history with the Slayer's Take. Because in the original campaign, Vox Machina had already dealt with the Slayer's Take before coming to Vasselheim in this moment. And so we know that didn't happen in season 1. So my question was, is it going to have happened off screen and that history will still be intact? Or are they going to treat it like a brand new thing? And like I said, we have our answer. And it's just that Vax and Vex have a history with him and no one else. And their history is interesting because they are taking that from the campaign, at least partly. Because in the campaign, they stole a Hydra from the Slayer's Take. Vox Machina did.
Yep.
And now we know the twins have done that in the show. But in the campaign, and y'all bear with me here, in the campaign when Vox Machina stole the Hydra kill, they had to go to the Slayer's Take and kind of make things right. And the way they did that was they decided to join the Slayer's Take, and they had to undergo what is called the trials of the Take. And during those trials, well, one of the things, at least, that happened was the group kills a Rakshasa, which we saw in the first season of the show.
Yeah.
Vax describes his favorite kill, and
It's a
that's the kill he
Rakshasa
describes
kill.
killing the Rakshasa. So the Rakshasa kill has happened in the show, but it did not happen with the Slayer's Take. Not that that's important, but it's an interesting distinction. It seems as if the only history in the show is just the Hydra kill, because it seems like the twins kind of bounced out of town after that happened, and thus why they had the bounty on their head. So all that to say is it kind of gives some context for the relationship we have with these two characters we meet here, Zara and Cash. In the campaign, all of Vox Machina had a history with them because of those trials of the Take. Here, it's just Vax and Vex, and it's seemingly just Vax and Vex with Zara, maybe even just Vex, because it doesn't seem like Cash really had much of a history with them. And
To me, it seems an awful lot like Vex and Zara had some kind of a fling, like a relationship, because
Maybe.
they act like jilted lovers.
Right?
To be perfectly honest, I think their relationship was more than this Hydra thing, but just Vex.
And you know what? I was actually kind of getting like scorned ex-lover vibes between Vex and Zara.
I hear
Was I
you,
the only
Will.
one?
Nope.
It's totally possible that they're just both, you know, flirty and catty, and that's kind of just the energy between them. but I feel like there's something more there. And, you know, if you refer back to all my word salad about the campaign versus the show, then we know that they're building a new history here, right? So they could do anything they want with it. And I don't know, I just feel like some things make sense, right? They're both acting very like jealous X way, like trying to make the other one jealous. And the interesting thing is the difference in reactions between Vax and Vex. When speaking about the Slayer's take, you know, Vex is all like, oh, I have a friend there. And Vax is like, well, I wouldn't call it a friend. Because from Vax's perspective, it's because they stole the Hydra and they've been on the run ever since. Not that they've been actively on the run, but, you know, they have the bounty against them. So
Yeah.
he's like, why would we go there? And so why would she view that differently unless she had some sort of relationship with Zara? I don't know. This maybe is a huge
That's
reach,
how I
but
felt,
I'd
too.
love to hear some discourse in the comments about it.
You are right,
In
sir.
any case, I love the back and forth between them, and I'm excited to find out more. But I've kind of gotten lost in a tangent here. Let me rewind a little bit and let's talk about some of the details in the Slayer's take. All right, so we have this room, which has a dozen mounted monster heads, none of which I feel confident in what they are. I went to the Discord to ask you guys for help on this one. I scoured through the monster manual and various other resources to see what I could come up with. And I'm only going to talk about the ones I have any type of halfway intelligent guess on here. But you guys, please let me know in the comments what you think, because this was kind of fun to, you know, try and figure out what these might be. But it could be anything from a D&D monster to a pop culture reference for all I know. But anyways, if we're starting on the left side, the second from the front, I believe that's either a were-rat or a werewolf, or just some sort of like giant feral rat. Next to that, I believe we have a griffin. Next to that, a were-boar. Next to that, hidden partially behind the banner, we get another better look at it from another angle. But that is a bullet, which is the same creature that Grog describes his favorite kill on during those same campfire stories that I mentioned earlier with Vax and the Rakshasa.
Perhaps Boulette.
Next to that, I believe we have a beholder skull. And then if we move over to the right side of the room, here I'm completely lost. But if you start at the very front, I think this is some sort of Ukatoan creature. Snake-like, and it's got all the different little eyes that look like the Ukatoa spheres. So I'm guessing it's some sort of homage to that.
Maybe.
Obviously not that it's literally Ukatoa. Next to that, we have some sort of plant monster, which shout out Brack from the Discord. He said it reminded him of the monster from the Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
And then the only other one I have somewhat of a guess for over here is the one second to the end, which I think could be an Umber Hulk. Those pincers are kind of giving me that vibe, at least. And then finally, the massive skeleton lining the center of the room. Believe that is a Remoraz. And shout out to Glim from the Discord for throwing that one out there. I think that fits pretty nicely. So yeah,
I don't even know what that is.
I got for you. Sorry, I can't be out here Jedi mind tricking all of these. Don't try and make that make sense. We're just going to pretend that Jedi mind trick works there. Yeah, again, I'd love to hear in the comments what you guys think we've got here. Next up, you may notice a few familiar faces in the background of the Slayer's take. First up, we have Garrison and Monica from Battle Chasers. Battle Chasers created by Joe Madureira. Probably butchering the pronunciation, forgive me. But Critical Role and Joe actually have a relationship. Joe has worked on some artwork for Critical Role before, and I believe it was in some recent interview that Travis mentioned they came to some sort of handshake deal to include this crossover. So maybe we might see some Critical Role people in some of Joe's next projects. Who knows? But there was also this tweet from Phil Barassa, who is the lead character designer on The Legend of Vox Machina, and he says, yes, I did draw Garrison and Monica from Battle Chasers into the background of the Slayer's Take Guild Hall, and I'd do it again. Thank you, Joe Madx, for allowing this world-shaking crossover to happen. So that's pretty cool. I'm not familiar with Battle Chasers, but this has me wanting to check it out. Alrighty, y'all. There's so many things in this scene. A couple other quick ones is we have a shout out to the combat wheelchair. Now, I know some people think this is Dagon, who used a combat wheelchair in Campaign 2 of Critical Role, but I don't think that's the case, as Dagon was a dwarf, and this guy looks like a human to me. So I think this was just a cool nod to the combat wheelchair itself. Other than that, we have this character who stood out kind of like a sore thumb to me. Something about those glasses. I was like, is this one of the Tin House animators or something? But then I actually got to thinking about it, and I realized this is Lyra, I'm pretty sure. Now, Lyra was a guest character in Campaign 1, played by Felicia Day. which if you don't know her history in Critical Role, it's pretty cool. She's the reason why we're even here in a way, because she was the one that originally brought them the idea to turn their D&D home game into a Twitch stream. So I think it's really cool that they included her character. Now, in the original campaign, she was part of the Slayer's Take, and she actually accompanied Vox Machina on those trials of the Take that I mentioned earlier. So clearly this is a character that, got cut in the service of fitting the tighter narrative, but I think it's really cool that they still placed her in the background. All right, next up, we've got this bulletin board, which has some really interesting stuff on it. You got to zoom in massively, so I don't know how well that's going to translate to this YouTube video, but I'll pop a couple of these up as I'm talking about them. And first and foremost, there's 3 or 4 different distinct real-life people, it looks like. And what I mean by that is it's almost as if you took a real photo, like of one of the Tid House animators or something, and then just like heavily grained it, or put some sort of effect,
pixelated it,
makes it blurry and really hard to see. But you can see some lines there, and they don't look like drawn lines. It looks like a photo, a heavily distorted photo, if that makes sense. So aside from those, there are some that are just look like, nondescript faces wearing masks and stuff like that. Nothing really too much to glean there. There is one face that looks like Loki, or at least wearing Loki's crown. So that's really interesting. There is a dragon, which could be a reference to the original campaign, one of the trials of the Take that I alluded to earlier. Vax killed the Rakshasa. Well, the other group went and killed a dragon. So could be that. Then there is also this recurring undead looking face. Shows up a few times. And part of me was wondering, like, is this a whispered one Easter egg? Not that there would literally be a ransom for him, but, just as an Easter egg. But then I was looking at it, and the more I looked at it, I was like, this looks familiar. And it really is making me think of episode 4 of season 1 when those undead wraiths attacked. One of them in particular had Matt Mercer hair. And back then I speculated, is this the Matt NPC? So this may even be that same model, and maybe they're just reusing it as an asset here.
Maybe.
But I thought it was fascinating. Let me know what you guys think, if you can even tell on these, smaller zoomed in versions. But there's a lot of really cool stuff here in the bulletin board, which I didn't expect to find. Alrighty, y'all. Thank you for bearing with me as I went full Pepe Silva on that bulletin board. I really appreciate it. And you know what? If you've made it this far through the video, want to hit us with a like, maybe drop a comment down below. Help us with the algorithm. That would be really appreciated. And you know what? If you've made it this far in the video and you've actually enjoyed it,
yes, we did.
If you're hate watching, that's fine, honestly. But if you are enjoying it and you wanted to hit us with that subscribe button, that would really mean the world to me.
Hit him with that subscribe.
Last time, we are a small channel, 1,000 subscribers, so might be cool to be.
You're doing a great job.
1,000 subscribers one day when we have 40 million.
Yeah, you will.
Get like a special pin or something. That'd be pretty cool. So just consider it, is all I'm saying. But let's move on now to talk about Zara and Cash proper. These two characters are fan favorite NPCs that I, and I'm sure many other
they're
have
great.
been waiting for. They are played by Mary Elizabeth McGlynn and Will Friedle, respectively. Both are longtime fans and friends of the show, and Mary is actually the voice director on The Legend of Vox Machina. So what an honor to be the one asked by a group of voice actors to be their director for their passion project.
That's cool.
It's a role she doesn't take lightly, I know, which is all the more reason that it's so awesome that she's in the show and was a part of it originally.
Yeah.
So everyone's stoked to see them, but let's talk a little bit more about the characters. Now, Zara, one thing that's interesting is that there is a forge in the Slayer's Take, and Zara in the campaign was a forger of weapons. She actually gives one to Grog, so it'll be interesting to see if that happens in the show. With how I think things are going to pace out, I don't really see that happening, but there's no reason for it not to, so maybe it will. And then Will Friedle's character, Cash, is very interesting. He has a very, very interesting backstory that I'm not sure how much we're going to get into on the show.
Yeah.
The fact that he's got the heterochromatic eyes is one clue into that. But more importantly, he has the scars all over his right arm. And that is a detail lifted directly from his backstory where, to put it briefly, he has an abusive relationship with his god. Now, Cash is a cleric, and so He gets his powers from a god, and it is a god that he is married to, that basically owned him to be married to her from birth. And the scars were like a physical kind of commitment and symbol of their relationship. It's really messed up.
It's
And
very
Cash has been
weird.
running from that god ever since she killed his entire family and village. Now, that's what happened in the campaign. If it happens in the show, remains to be seen. But those scars are a pretty poignant, clue to the fact that those details are the same. But it's something that may never get brought up and honestly doesn't really need to get brought up unless Cash and Zara are going to be like pretty deeply explored this season, which I don't know that they are. But again, if you refer back to my enormous word scramble ramble earlier about the Slayer's take and the changed history compared to the campaign, they could really do lots of different things here. But at the end of the day, Zara and Cash were really close allies of Vox Machina, and I really love how we're starting with them here in this kind of antagonistic way.
Right.
So
it's quite different than how it played out. They were much more helpful and friendly in the campaign than they were in this show so far. So I like what he's saying here. It does make sense that they've got to find a way to swing them around, because otherwise it would change a whole lot of things.
It'll be really interesting to see how these develop, and I will speak more on each of these characters when the relevant moments pop up later in the episode and this season. All right, next up we have Vox Machina falling down into the Sphinx's lair thanks to the trapdoor, which is very reminiscent of the Rancor pit from Star Wars, so I gotta think that's an intentional allusion. But before we check in down there, let's check in with our boy Grog, who's been absent this whole time.
Yeah.
He's been doing his own thing, and I had to mention how they recreated the butterfly meme with him. I'm sure everybody noticed, but of course, I'm going to bring that up. But after that, he heads on over to the Stormlord's Temple, where we meet Earthbreaker Grun for the first time, played by Ike Imandi, and what a freaking casting. His voice was commanding in the best way. Grun is a badass, and they knocked it out of the park with this one. This moment from the original campaign, where do you find your strength, is such a good moment. I was getting goosebumps in this episode, and we didn't even get the payoff for it. So I cannot wait for that to happen. I'm interested to see if Grog comes back to the Stormlord's arena to kind of get that answer and have that payoff. But I don't think it's necessary. I think he could kind of just discover what that answer is for him later in the season, no matter where he is. Also in this scene, it's not really an Easter egg or anything, but we get our first real glimpse at what Craven Edge is doing to him, sucking up blood and filling Grog with strength, but a bloodlust. I think this storyline is really going to get turned up to 10 moving forward, because I believe it's going to end after they find the second Sphinx in that encounter. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but that's how I think the time's going to shake out. So it should be really interesting to see kind of the pieces start to move on that one. All right, let's check back in with Team Sphinx. And here we have Vax showing his flame tongue dagger, one of his main weapons in the campaign. And we have Keylith casting light on her staff to help illuminate the darkness. Now, this Osisa encounter I thought was really well done, really cool. In the campaign, basically, it's the same as far as what Osisa tells them, meaning the vestiges of divergence and to go find her mate, the other Sphinx. But in the TV show, they're changing like the actual mechanics of the encounter, meaning they change what actually happens before she gives that information. And in the show, she kind of takes each one and, digs at their deepest flaw and kind of gives us an idea of their narrative arc they might be going on this season or beyond, which I think is just so smart. You can kind of cram in a lot of information in a really quick scene, either to remind people that watched the campaign or give fresh viewers just that additional context of kind of what these characters are about.
And their deepest fear.
Really quickly, we have Vax, who is way codependent on his sister. We have Vex, who is just always, seeking that external love, specifically her father's. Then we have Keylith. I think I'm going in the wrong order here, so y'all forgive me. We have Keylith, who is worried about, never fulfilling her duty, and even then so doing it and outliving everyone she knows. As a druid, she is going to, not be functionally immortal, but she is going to far, far outlive any normal human and everyone else in this party. We have Percy, the cursed heir, who is still struggling with all the stuff we saw him deal with in season 1 and wondering if his baggage will always be too much. Will anyone ever really be able to trust him? The book's still not even closed on his trauma. As we know, at the end of this episode, we get some information about Ripley. She's still out there somewhere.
Yeah.
So he still has vengeance he's wanting to enact. So even with all of this progress he's made, Percy is still very much wrestling with demons. Then with Pike, she is having a crisis of faith. She kind of had one of those in season 1, but here I think it's more specifically pointed at faith in people, faith in her friends. And I know we're going to get some aspects of that with Grog this season in his Raven Edge arc. So it will be interesting to see play out. And then finally we have Scanlan, which I think was the darkest of them all, the most painful of them all, honestly. It was played off as a joke, but I think it, kind of works on multiple levels. Again, I mentioned this in episode 1, but this is just more set up for the Bard's Lament. Scanlan doesn't think anyone actually really cares about him.
Yeah, we don't care about him.
Alone. Friends. And, he's not with them in this moment, but Grog is also going through a crisis of identity. His baptism is just at the hands of Earthbreaker Groon, and, his arc this season is going to be finding more out about his own purpose. Where do you find your strength?
Yeah.
Next, what I thought was interesting is that the Osisa fight only ends once Pike comes up and says that, she's willing to even sacrifice her own life in pursuit of this good. And, real quick, I don't think I mentioned that the Sphinx is being played by Alana Ubach. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Another very storied voice actor. This cast is just absolutely bananas. And I guess really quick, let me throw up a threat level midnight for this really quick. So if you don't want spoilers, wait until that, or this side, I don't know what side it's on. Wait until that disappears and then you'll be good. But yeah, it's just interesting because, this trial she's putting them through, needing to see if these people have the grit, to ultimately even give up their own lives in pursuit of this goal makes sense because as we know, Vox Machina quite literally has a few deaths on this path to defeating the Chroma Conclave. Now, I know I gave a threat level midnight, so anybody that's here knew what they were getting into. But even that being said, I'm not going to elaborate further than that, because I know some of you spoiler demons kept watching anyway, but I'm not going to give you all the juicy bits. You can go Google it if you want to.
Darn it.
But yeah, so it's just, considering that's the case, that's a pretty good flagpole to put up if you're the Sphinx. Be like, well, I'm not going to help these people unless they're literally willing to die, because that's probably going to happen. So I just liked that neat little bow on kind of the purpose of the trial and the reason she is now sharing about the vestiges of divergence and her mate with them. Which, speaking of, we get a lot of absolutely gorgeous shots of the Calamity. And I'll try to, point out things, at least that I think I know are being shown here, but some of it, is probably just a best guess scenario. But she tells them all about that. We get the vestiges of divergence, which is this is a slight departure from the campaign. She is still the one to give them this information in general, but it was actually Earthbreaker Groon that tells the party where the Deathwalker's ward are and where the Titanstone knuckles are.
I had forgotten that.
I think it makes sense to kind of just consolidate that all to the Sphinx here. But, an interesting distinction. Okay, so moving on to these Calamity shots. Now, just general disclaimer here. These shots are so stylized that I feel like it's really hard to make out too much detail insofar as saying like, oh, this is the prime deity that's being depicted and this is the betrayer god for sure. Because we really don't know. The interesting about this one, though, in particular, is those eyes.
Yeah.
What's interesting is those eyes are in the opening sequence of the show, which, for my money, before having seen this shot, if you asked me what those eyes were, I would say one of two things.
Vecna.
My best guess would have been that they represent the Whispered One. But the other guess would be that, like, maybe it's a nod to the fact that it's Matt, like, overseeing everything because he's the DM of this world type of thing. but they look kind of sinister. So that wouldn't be my guess, and I would definitely lean more towards it being the whispered one. But here in this Calamity shot, that makes no sense because the whispered one wouldn't even have existed in that way yet. So I don't know what those eyes are supposed to be. I'm assuming just, again, general stylized prime deities,
12, right?
player gods here. Yeah. But I would love to hear y'all's thoughts in the comments if you think we've got some more specific entities here that could be named. Moving on to this next one, here we clearly have the Dawn Father, facing off against what I would venture to guess is the Chained Oblivion. The Chained Oblivion is described as being very alien and not like of this world, which that creature looks amorphous and, very alien to me.
Yeah, I think that's a good guess.
So that would be my best guess. Plus, that was one of the big, big old battles of the Calamity was, those two facing off with each other. And there were more people than just the Dawn Father, obviously. But since he's the only one in this photo, that's why I'm soloing out him. But, yep, would love to hear y'all's guesses on this one as well. We have this other shot, which this one is just super stylized, and I have no idea. I can't even tell, what he's striking against. Again, it might just be this amorphous darkness, in which case, Chained Oblivion, who knows?
Striking against the darkness.
And as far as what the prime deity is, not sure. I mean, it's stylized starriness. It kind of looks like Pelor, but it's clearly not. So, again, I don't think there's really someone in particular that we could concretely identify this as. But again, would love to hear y'all's thoughts in the comments.
Might be the Everlight.
And then finally we get this shot of a sword in the desert, and this is when Osisa is talking about the vestiges, being lost to time or whatever.
Buried.
Now, there's a few that this could be, but my best guess is going to be the Star Razor, which is a vestige that shows up in campaign 2.
That's what I was gonna say.
It might just be the stylized piece of this
You
art.
took your word for it.
It looks like it's made of stars, so that would really fit. Other possibilities it could be would be Myth Carver, which is going to show up this season, for my money at least. It could be Whisper, a dagger that shows up, but we know that is found, at least in the campaign, underwater. So not that this desert couldn't ultimately become an ocean over the course of eons of time, but I'm going to go Star Razor for this one. And not to sound like a broken record, but let me know in the comments what you guys think. Alrighty, y'all, just a couple of quick things to round out this episode. First, we've got this little kind of tongue-in-cheek moment of Pike and Scanlan talking about inspiration, saying that's new to them, when in the campaign, inspiration was one of the core mechanics of Scanlan. And one of, honestly, my favorite parts of his character. He would inspire the other characters and usually do so in song. That's a kind of intentional little tongue-in-cheek moment there. Other than that, we get Percy going to Victor's, and this put the biggest smile on my face.
Yeah,
Victor has got to be one of the all-time greatest NPCs, which is saying a lot. There are a lot of heavy hitters in that category, and it just made me happy. There's not much more to say than that. I am 100% going to include the original campaign clip after this, so you're welcome. But this was just fantastic. And add a little Easter egg here is that there is a hog's head on the wall,
I saw that.
which when you watch the original clip, you'll see the relevance of that. Alrighty, y'all, before I send you off with that clip, let me go ahead and do the outro really quick. This video is so long. This video is going to be over 40 minutes after this Victor clip, which, hey, if you haven't seen the original campaign, stick around for this. I think you'll enjoy it. And those of you that did see the campaign, I know you're going to stick around for this, but just you get to see the brilliance that is Matt Mercer. But thank you for sticking around for this video. Like I said, this is over 40 minutes, which is longer than the episode itself. So anyone that made it this far, I know you're my people. So I appreciate you. And
we are your people, man. Well,
episode 3. These are taking me about 2 days each, so hopefully we'll have this one by Wednesday. Thanks, guys.
And it's a very, very simple, kind of slovenly kept house. The wood itself is a little warped from the weather. It hasn't kept well, and there's kind of a musty smell of mildew from the outside of the building. But you see a slight glow between the cracks. Apparently there's some sort of interior light.
Hello?
Yes?
Oh. Charming. My name is Percival Frederick Stein von Musa Kowalski De Rolo III.
Huzzah!
Thank you. I was sent to you. I was sent here in terms to hopefully negotiate the purchase of some black powder. I've heard that
The door slams open at this point, mid
Ah!
and you see from around the corner a very lithe, crooked-looking man, quite elderly but very spry for his size. You can see his arms and legs are very lanky and almost spider-like in the way they move and shift as he peeks out, and you can see he has spectacles of 2 different sizes and thickness around each eye. His hair is kind of frazzled and gray and white. He goes, yes!
Oh.
You said you need black powder! Yes, come in! And he runs back into the hovel.
I gingerly enter this.
As you step inside, the scent hits you immediately, and you realize this place is probably filled with black powder, and the last thing anyone wants is to set off any sort of flame. This would be a very bad idea. And as you look around, your eyes adjust to the low-lit interior. You realize it's low-lit because there are 2 very, very faintly set magical torch sconces on each side that are very, very low light.
Very similar to the ones surrounding you.
Kind of like these, but even smaller. And you can see in the room, there is a small forge that's kind of in disuse to the far end.
I would hope so.
There are a large number of crates and barrels that all seem to be containing various parts of discarded gravel. Basically, whatever is kind of shoved off of any mining expedition goes to him, and he just shuffles through it and kind of separates it in different pieces. And there's barrels full of sulfur. There's barrels full of what looks like broken kind of onyx or broken.
Wow,
quartz.
we're getting a whole lot here.
And you can see now this is kind of his OCD collection. And there is indeed in the far end what looks to be a barrel that contains a large amount of black powder that it's just everywhere. It's like this very fine coat of powder that is encompassing this entire room.
It's very descriptive.
You can see now his hands himself are black and coated, and he goes, "So, you came looking for black powder, did you? No one asked about the black powder, but I knew it had a purpose. Yes, you wish to buy it? How much do you want?"
So was he the voice?
Yeah.
Oh.
Speak up, I haven't all day.
How much for a barrel or a hogshead's worth?
For the barrel, that'll run you. 4,623 gold pieces for the barrel. However, for a hogshead, you can see now there's spittle dribbling down his chin.
It's as if I can see the spittle myself.
Yes, indeed. For the hogshead, which and he turns around and like shuffles through a bunch of pieces of burlap and sack and pulls out what looks to be an actual dried and hollowed out hogshead. To fill this hogshead with it, this will only cost you 426 gold pieces.
20.
Yes.
How about 400 even, and you can direct me to some ore as well?
Ore? I do not work in ore.
I thought you might have a friend.
Make a persuasion roll.
Nice, Percy.
Nice, Percy. Look at that. He slipped right into Mercer there. No, that's.
Yeah. I love Percy. 25.
25.
I'm sure you have a friend. You seem so amiable.
400, I send you to Samson. Yes, you take.
My good sir, you have a deal.
Glorious! He turns around and just jams the head into the barrel of black powder, picks it up. The soot kind of settles against you and the rest of you guys as you now find yourself partially covered in this slowly dissipating cloud of black powder. You cough instinctively and push it away. 400 gold. You pay?
I gingerly put the purse down in front of me.
He takes it with a whisk. It's already put away into a side pouch, and you hear the clanging of kind of haphazard coins in his far pocket. Here, Hoghead, take it. To Samson, this way. And he grabs your arm and drags you out of his hovel. He points across the way with this kind of shaking, crooked finger. Samson, there, in the brick building. I tell him, Vex'ahlia sends you. He'll give you all.
Thank you for all of your help. You've been so kind.
Oh, my pleasure. You want more powder? Come back.
I might do that.
Good. Goodbye. And pushes you out, takes both of you by the arms and pushes you out, slams the door behind, and you are left kind of standing there half covered in blackened soot and black powder in the center of the thoroughfare midday, kind of stunned by the whole encounter.
I mean, come on.
Amazing.
Come on.
Amazing.
Come on.
So do they have scripts to say that?
No,
Or they just do
this
it
is
on their own?
unscripted. Matthew made that character up on the spot, created that all up in his mind, pulled that voice out of his brain somewhere, and just ran with it.
Oh.
And those are all voice actors, professional voice actors. And they were applauding his performance
Right.
as Victor. That's how good it was.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so much fun. All right, well, this has already been long enough. Please go and give the Pixelists Podcast on YouTube some love. You can find them youtube.com/Pixelists. And we appreciate you guys sticking around with us. We really do love the Vox Machina show.
Oh, we do. I'm sticking around because I want to learn more, but I didn't learn much because he didn't want to.
He doesn't give up the details very easily.
I wanted to hear
even
the
though
details.
it's spoiler light, he doesn't want to give up the goods because that ruins things for people.
I know.
Yeah, and we don't
But I
want to get
mean,
ruined.
The questions are like, still unanswered. So is this one. He's not really good at giving me spoilers.
I don't want to spoil. I try not to give too much. So,
Yeah.
all right, we'll leave it there.
I guess I leave it hanging to go do the next episode of the Vox Machina. Well, thank you again for tuning into our channel. Don't forget to give your love and support to the Pixelists. Check them out, subscribe, and support them. And thank you for supporting our channel. We really appreciate you guys. Keep your recommendations coming and your suggestions and your links. Thank you again, and see you in the next video.